Ah, yes. The trade deadline has come and gone. A lot of moves made. The first being the Tyler Toffoli deal, followed by Jake Allen, Colin Miller, and finally Vitek off to San Jose. We're going to dive in on everything that went on today as the trade deadline has come and gone. A busy day for Fitz. How did he do? Eh, oh. Ah, yes, Danny McDonough coming to you live. Devils puck luck missing Adam Armbrecht. Hope you caught his great live earlier today. He had a lot of great points. We agree on a lot of things that happened today, Adam and I do, but there's certain things that I think we're a little bit off on. But first of all, I am sorry in advance, dealing with some seasonal allergies going on a little early for spring to come here with the weather change. But listen, it's a busy day, right? First, a lot of disappointment. And as Adam said from the top, he pointed out I was probably going to come in a little hot here. I had a little bit more of a reactionary kind of fan situation going on when I saw the Toffoli deal and I saw what the return was. I don't like it, and I'm going to sit here and we're going to talk about the VTech going to San Jose for Kahkonen coming back. But first, let's talk about the Toffoli deal. When I saw that Winnipeg was the team he was going to, I was wondering why it'd be Winnipeg if there was a bidding war for Toffoli. I think LA Kings were involved. I think the Vancouver Canucks were involved. Maybe the Boston Bruins were involved. My big issue with Toffoli here, this deal is I think Fitz could have got a lot more. And I think this deal is really based on the fact that Fitz really wants Toffoli back here and to sign him in the offseason, which I don't know if I agree on yet. I think a lot depends on what goes on in the offseason. I think that there's a lot of things that Fitz needs to do now that he's made the moves he did at the deadline. Tyler Toffoli is a great player. I'm not sure if he's going to fit with what he wants here in New Jersey next season, meaning the two sides were off when it comes to term, when it comes to years, when it comes to numbers. And because of that, unrestricted free agent, you know that he's got to be dealt, and that's the right thing to do. Do not love the return. I don't love the return. When I heard it was a second and third, I would have been okay with it being the second this year from Winnipeg, which is Montreal's pick. So it's going to be a very early second round pick along with the third. When I found out it was 2025 for that second pick and the third being this year, I didn't like it. I didn't like it even more when I found out 50% was retained salary wise. So, I saw this and I was flipping out. I was like, what is going on right now? We waited this long. Fitz told us he did not want to deal to Foley. He wanted to work out an extension for this trade. Really? We waited for this. This is what you had to give us, Fitz, the fans, and wanting to know what was going on with this team. And we're going to rewind. There's a lot that Fitz needed to do that he did not do way before the deadline and the week leading up to the deadline. We had LTIR money and space that needed to be utilized early. The Devils were in dire need for a goaltender in November and December. Dire need. With all the injuries that were going on as well, the argument to bring in a defenseman, a top 4 D-man in here. So I think a lot of what happened during this deadline and with the Toffoli deal especially, it just needed to get done. And I think that he went to Winnipeg because Fitz really wants to bring him back. And maybe there's a backdoor handshake kind of deal that, Toffoli and his camp and Fitz and the Devils organization want to work a deal out this offseason. I think a lot of that will depend on what the Devils do in the offseason. And you saw or heard Fitz's comments after the deadline that it's big game hunting now, whatever that means. We're going to talk about the other trades, but I think a lot of it depends on what Fitz is going to do in the offseason, if he's really going to go after Toffoli and if he's going to be a fit here with the Devils next year. But next trade being the Jake Allen deal. Adam and I agree on this one. I was kind of befuddled. I had no idea what was going on here. I thought that this was like the backup of a backup of a backup plan. Bringing a guy in here with an 890 save percentage, it's 3.6 goals against average. It was kind of a slap in the face to Devils fans, right? And to the organization, that you're showing you're going to bring this guy in when we're going after Markstrom, when we have high hopes of maybe Olmark in the offseason and Saros in the offseason, which again can still happen. But I think that all Devils fans were thinking in their head, what the hell is going on right now? Listen, the salary retention is great. He's only going to cost us 1.9 next year. Jake Allen is. So I understand it. I understand the veteran presence and to give Dawes that much needed rest and break coming off of hip surgery. We put a lot on that kid's shoulders. So I completely understand that move. But it was just, what are we doing? We're giving up a conditional third for, an aging 33, going to be 34-year-old goaltender that has had subpar years. His first year with Montreal, I think, was his best year, and he was a little bit over, 900 save percentage there. And it's just, it was a big slap in the face to me. I'm curious to what you all think too. But, I really struggled with thinking that this is really what was going to happen. This was what our deadline was going to be. I assumed Miller was going to get moved, which we're going to talk about in a second. And it kind of killed me as a Devils fan. Like, what is going on right now? Are we really going to end this deadline with these two moves that are so subpar? And you really, it felt like a stain on this entire season with all the adversity that we had going on, from injuries, from the McLeod situation and foot situation, from the constant situation with Ruff that seemed to be ongoing and kept going on, throughout the year. And I think Ruff should have been let go earlier too. I think there's a big argument, and fans wanted him let go earlier too. And whether you liked Ruff or not, it probably was the better decision to let him go earlier, just to move on, to see what the Devils can do in a different system and under the interim coach. But it's really tough to sit here and actually think about that was the only two moves that the Devils were going to make. But moving on to the Miller deal, this is a big question I had with the Miller deal. So going to Winnipeg, Fitz makes another deal mid-round, fourth-round pick, back to the Jets, and Miller goes there. I wonder if there was not a conversation that Toffoli and Miller would be packaged to get a little bit of better draft capital there. It was a little awkward to me that you saw this about an hour and a half after that Miller was dealt to. I don't know if it was a topic of conversation that came up quickly, with the Devils and with the Jets, but listen, for Miller, I'm fine with it. You want to get a mid-round pick there. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the draft capital. That's fine with me. I wasn't too surprised Smith wasn't dealt. I know a lot of fans wanted him dealt. I just like Smith for the locker room. He is what he is. I don't want to sit here and debate what he is and what he isn't to this team. I think a lot of fans and myself agree that he should not be playing over certain players, younger players, in certain situations and games this year. Smith is good for the locker room, and I think that the team really, really circles around him and likes him, and I think he is a leadership voice in that room. He's not going to be with the Devils next year. I think most fans can agree with that. It's just it was a good move, in my opinion, to keep Smith, to keep that grittiness on defense and that penalty killing ability. You're going to miss Miller's shot, but again, getting that asset, getting that draft capital, I'm totally fine with. The final move of the day, which came a little after the trade deadline had ended, but was in the works, it seemed, with San Jose, is Vanecek getting traded with a 7th-round pick for Kahkonen. Now, we all remember Kahkonen gave up 7 goals to us when we beat San Jose 7-2. I like this move a lot, and there's multiple reasons why I like this move. Number one, you're shedding $3.4 million with the Vitek contract. Kahkonen is a free agent. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. So this next 20 games, the end of the year, you're really going to see what kind of player he is and what he might be able to do with the Devils. Good trade, and to me, this is almost Fitz kind of saving face, because we were in the situation. I think most Devils fans, if you're on Twitter, you saw that the Flames had one more trade in the pipeline in queue. There was a couple tweets, and everybody's sitting there wondering, like, what's going on right now? It can't be Markstrom, right? I thought Markstrom might have been going to the Kings when I saw that via Twitter, but it turns out it was nothing. It was Holtwick actually going and being traded there to the Sharks, believe it or not, to the Flames from the Sharks. So there was a lot of question marks going into this deadline, and Adam and I debated it. Do you even make a move for Markstrom, who is a 34-year-old goalie here who has 2 years of term? I thought you did, but I think Fitz alluded to the price was extremely high. And I don't think we're going to know what that price point was, but it's still going to come down to now, how much of a difference is that price going to be in the offseason? We have different pieces now, and I think Allen could be a piece that you can flip, obviously, in the offseason too, if you needed to, for assets, if we can land that number one goalie. And what I mean by number one goalie is I think everyone can agree. Ullmark, Saros, Markstrom. My big one is Ullmark. I think Ullmark is the guy to really target for the Devils. You're going to have to give up a lot for him, though. And I think we know that. Holtz is going to be gone. If it's Holtz, depending on what's going to go on with Mercer in the offseason, too, he's due a contract. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of money that is going to have to be accounted for, but we're going to have it, especially now, shedding that VTech contract at 3.4 million. We're going to have some room to work with here. And a lot comes down to what the Devils are going to do, jumping back to Toffoli's situation, if he really went to Winnipeg, because Fitz wanted to put him in as a rental situation for them to have the opportunity to sign Toffoli again. It's tough with Toffoli. I know there's a lot of fans out there that are very split on this with 50-50 with bringing him back. It all depends on the money, right? You're not going to have Toffoli for 5-6 years at $5.5-6 million. It just would not make sense for the organization, and it would be like a Palat-like deal, right? Which obviously fans do not like. But for me, I look at it as, if you can get him for $3 million, at 3 years at $5 million, maybe $4.5 million, he's going to have to take a pay cut to stay here. And it also depends on what the Devils are going to do, as we talked about. Let's go back here. I'm going to jump into some of the comments. Appreciate you guys all tuning in here on Twitter and on YouTube. We're going to go with Mike. Toffoli wanted a long-term deal. Devils didn't. Yeah, correct. They were definitely off when it came to negotiations. I know that Fitz went to the Toffoli camp, and basically they were looking for 3-4 years, where Toffoli wanted 5 years, maybe 6 years, some reports. There wasn't just a fit. There wasn't a fit at the moment for an extension. I think that's a good thing. I think the position that the Devils are in now, I don't think it would have been smart to extend him. I think the Devils have a lot of work to do, especially in the offseason, going into the offseason, knowing the holes that they need to fill. I think it's really important, to be honest with you, that we moved him for assets. Jeff, I have to disagree on Toffoli. He wants too much term. So that's that, unless Tyler decides to budge on that. Again, exactly what I was talking about, and I agree with you. I think the big thing here is just that, right? It's going to be coming into the offseason, what moving parts they're going to be, and if he's willing to take a pay cut in less years. I think a lot of that has to do, to be honest with you, with what moves that Fitz makes. I think we can all agree, if Kahkonen and Allen are starting goaltending tandem going into next year, after this disaster of a year with goaltending, we're all going to be upset about it. Barring Kahkonen or Allen playing incredibly insane hockey and just shutting the door and us ripping 14 out of 16 games to end the year, whatever it might be, it's going to be a massive disappointment for all Devils fans. And I hope that this isn't a backup plan in Fitz's mind, because that's not a good backup plan. You have to sign a big dog. And the big game hunting, and I'm quoting from Fitz, he's going big game hunting in the offseason. I think that is 100% alluding to getting that goaltender. So it's a big question mark, and it's going to be the massive question mark going into next year. I don't think the Devils are far off from pieces that they need to compete for a top 3 position in the Metro next year. And what I mean by that is having a number 1 goalie, obviously. If you get a number 1 goalie instantly with Allmark or Saros, instantly you are a contender to win the Metro with what we have. Do we need to upgrade our defense? Absolutely. I don't think there's any question we need to upgrade our defense. I've spoken to Adam about this. There's a few unrestricted free agents that I'm going to be eyeing. I love Hanifin, obviously, but now he's going to be in Vegas and he's going to get extended there. You're looking at players like Dylan, big guy, lefty. He's a guy that I'm looking at, in the free agent market. But we're going to dive way more into what pieces we might be able to get in the offseason, really focusing more on the trade deadline and what you would grade Fitz for this deadline. It's, again, at the beginning of the day, I was like, holy hell, what is Fitz doing? It's a massive failure. You have to look at it like this. It's everything Fitz did up to the deadline. I think that he just dragged his feet. And I think that he did not make the moves he needed to make even before the season. Adam and I talked about this for so long, for months, that it was a massive gamble going into this year with Vitek, who had average to below average numbers for his career, and Akira Schmid, who had a phenomenal playoff series against the Rangers. And was he going to be able to perform at that level and grow in the NHL season, the grueling NHL season, and become a player that was absolutely phenomenal? And you saw Akira take a step back, which I think that we all knew he was going to take a step back a little bit, but as much as he did was surprising. And obviously things needed to be done, and Fitz didn't do it quick enough. That's what it comes down to. When Hamilton went on LTIR, it was time to make a move, and it was just way, way, way too late. And that's why we're where we are now. Do I think that Fitz did a great job getting Kahkonen from San Jose for Vitek? I do. I think that was a great move, and it made me breathe a little easier at the trade deadline, after the trade deadline, because it was something that was needed. But it makes you just scratch your head. It makes you scratch your head with the Allen trade, and it's still tough for me to wrap my head around it, because I agree with Adam 100%. There's so many Jake Allens out there. There's so many goaltenders that are similar to him, veteran guys that you can bring in here, that are going to have similar qualities to what he can do. Again, he's a champion. Listen, he's a veteran. He brings an edge to his game. Just his personality. Watching an interview today with Allen, it's you see he's just very calm and just very cool under pressure, which I like. But a lot of it to me, it's very questionable, the Allen move, especially getting Kahkonen too. And I'm really curious to see how they play down the stretch, and how this is going to affect the Devils' psyche too. You saw it after Toffoli was scratched for trade-related reasons, obviously, against the Blues. The Devils went out there and had one of their best games of the year. It's pretty crazy to think about, right? They played extremely well defensively. Timo Meier is absolutely flying right now. And what's great is he was on his right wing, which a lot of fans, again, have been talking about not being on his right side, and he gets a hat trick. He's been absolutely incredible. I don't know how much you can put on the fact that he was on right wing, that he exploded for the 3 goals. He was hot even on the left wing in the last week or two. So, it's good to see him actually stepping up and actually doing what we thought he could do. I never questioned this extension with Timo. I think fans jumped down his throat very quickly. And of course, you got to have accountability, right? He knew he was playing like crap, and we saw that he was playing like crap. But I think a lot of it was associated to the injury. I think a lot of it was associated to line juggling. And I think a lot of it's associated with the actual system. Timo is going to be the best player when he's cleaning up goals in front of the net. He needs to continue to do that, drive the net. He had such a phenomenal play. That second goal was unbelievable. And you love to see it. And it's really a reflection on what he's going to be able to do, moving forward. Mr. White, B-. We've had some great communication on Twitter back and forth. You and I agree on a lot of things, actually. So it's I know some of our opinions aren't going to be the fan favorite at times. B- is actually spot on what I was going to give Fitz. B-, C+. I think there's a lot of things now that he can do in the offseason with the moves he made. And again, I really think that before the Kahkonen and Vitek trade, he was at a C- to a D+, probably a D+ for the moves he made. I think it really solidified getting that $3.4 million, cleared up, next year with Vitek going over to San Jose. And the 7th rounder, you really don't. It's, 2025 7th rounder. Okay, that's fine. What else you guys say, Mr. White? Jack of Heart. Being from Montreal, the Allen move is a massive puzzle, especially for the return he got. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this was almost a desperation move in case nothing at all happened, even if Kahkonen wasn't here, right? So if Kahkonen wasn't traded, Vitek wasn't traded for Kahkonen, was this the absolute worst case scenario that he went out to get Allen, and because of the veteran presence, maybe helping to grow Dawes and helping to grow Schmid, and to really kind of solidifying that champion mentality, so to speak, in the locker room? And you really couldn't get any worse with what was going on with our goaltending. It felt like a lateral move to me. That was my problem. That's what I was talking to Adam about before he jumped on his live earlier. This was, it was like, what are we doing? Like, what's the point of this move, especially giving up a conditional third? I personally don't think that condition to become a second with 40-plus games and the Devils making the playoffs. I think the Devils will make the playoffs next year. I'm staying positive. I think the Devils and Fitz are going to do the right things to get back to that contender we think they can be. But I don't think Allen's going to be playing 40 games, so I don't think that condition is going to be met anyway. What'd you put an F with? Come on, Mr. White, you can't put an F. Now you change it to an F? Oh, all right. So the Allen part of it, yes, is an F. I agree with you on that. Let's go to Mitchell up here. Mitch, what do you got to say? Fitz's day, just like the season, seemed a day late and $1 short. This is what we were talking about, right? I don't think anyone can blame Fitz. 100% can't blame Fitz, I should say, Maybe you were skeptical about it a little bit before the season. If you said, listen, we're going to roll the dice and we're going to go into this year with Vitek and Akira. Okay. No one could have predicted the injuries we had, and the injuries were insane. From Jack, Nico, Timo, Nocek, Bastion now. Just crazy amount of injuries. And then you obviously have Hamilton, Siegenthaler. So big injuries, I don't think anybody could have predicted. But again, I agree with you because when Dougie went on long term, there's space there to make a move. Fitz saw the writing on the wall. This team was struggling. This team is young. Their heads were hanging when they went down, and there was soft goals that went in against. We did not score first goals. We still don't score first goals. You see that throughout the year. It was time to make a move for a goaltender, I think in December, around the holidays, before the holidays. And Fitz dragged his feet. And that's the problem. And that's the big concern. And when Ruff was fired, I think he dragged his feet with Ruff. And I want to make sure that everyone understands this. And I know a lot of fans disagree with me on this. And Mitchell, thanks for the comment there. I know a lot of fans disagree with me on this. Ruff was not the problem. He was not the big problem. Ruff's system may have become the problem because of moves that weren't made. Goaltending was the massive issue. Young blue line was the massive issue. Injuries were the massive issues. These things cannot take more value and saying that Ruff was that bad. Ruff was horrendous. Ruff is one of the most winning coaches in the history of the NHL. It was time for Ruff to leave. Do not get me wrong. I wanted Ruff to be fired. I thought he should be fired. I thought the Devils needed a new voice. I thought the Devils needed a new vision, and they're getting it now. But again, it's too late. It's too late in the season. I thought there was a point where there would be no coaching change after a certain amount of games and let the season finish out and then retool in the offseason. I was wrong with that. I think there's a couple friends I was speaking to as well. It'd be almost impossible to bring Ruff and kind of cruel to bring Ruff back in home after that West Coast trip, to bring him back when they played Florida. It would have been cruel because the fans would have absolutely destroyed Ruff. So it was the right move to get rid of him and really move on from him. But again, I want to make sure that everyone understands our position, and I could speak for Adam on this, this was never only Ruff's fault for the system that he had. This was a personnel issue. This was not making a move when a move should have been made for a goaltender, for defense, to bring in veteran presence here on defense is what I really wanted, especially after Hamilton. You see how much we're missing Dougie right now. Dougie did not have a good defensive start to the year, but we are sorely missing Dougie on the power play. And Luke Hughes is going to be a phenomenal player, but Luke Hughes has struggled mightily from the grueling 82-game season that the NHL is. He hit a wall, and that's the rookie wall. And it happens, and you can't sit here and blame the young kid for having those struggles. He's going to have those struggles. He's going to learn on the fly, but we didn't give him help. Playing Luke Hughes with Smith is not help. Playing Luke Hughes with Miller is not help. These are things that needed to be addressed quicker than they were, and they're going to be addressed in the offseason. But there's a lot that's happened within the season, and a lot of adversity that these young kids are really going to now take on for the rest of the year. Listen, we got like a 15% chance to make the playoffs, whatever it is. Barring some miracle, I think we all can agree that the Devils are most likely not going to make the playoffs. We're all dreamers. I know we want to be dreamers, but there's a lot of teams ahead of us. The Islanders are hot right now. The Caps are still winning games. The Penguins, I don't know what's going on. They got destroyed by the Caps. There's a lot of things that need to happen in our way to make the playoffs. Assuming we don't make the playoffs, I want to see what these kids are made of and built of now that they are going to be playing for those individual, number one, those individual moments that they need to build on, especially the rookies, but to see where they can go and to see how this team is going to be retooled coming in to the offseason. What we got here from Michael. Michael, thanks for the response here. Losing McLeod, also a blow unspoken about. Listen, Adam and I touched on everything that went on with Team Canada. We do not dive into it because I want to leave everything off the ice as it should. It's a horrific situation. Michael McLeod on this team is a massive loss for the Devils. Without Michael McLeod, that third line center and what he did, the different things that he brought to the team, winning faceoffs, board battles, puck management, forechecking. He was strong on the puck. He brought physicality. Michael McLeod is a massive loss. It was a massive loss, and you saw the team really have to juggle lines, juggle centers, playing Mercer at center. You saw so many different things that went on with Ruff when he was the coach. I couldn't agree with you more, Michael, that I think it was a devastating loss, and that has to be addressed in the offseason. And I think you could see Adam Henry coming back. He's with the Oilers now, but I could see, Rico coming back, with the Devils, that veteran presence next year. But if not him, you have to find a veteran guy that is going to be gritty, that is going to be tough. Jack of Heart, what do you got? Zadorov went to a division rival for a 4th-round pick. We should have been all. We talked about this on Twitter. I think we talked about this a while ago. I wanted Zadorov so bad. And listen, he's not playing exceptionally well since the trade. He's playing okay. He's had his moments. He's had some bad turnovers from what I've seen. But that dude can hit, and he is physical, and he will defend teammates. And something Adam and I have talked about for a long time this season is the fact that the Devils are soft. And the Devils have been soft. And Zadorov would definitely have brought that. I thought Chris Tanev would have brought that. Even Hanifin would have brought that. 2 big bodies, big D-men. Michael, going back to you one more time. On the PK, on the face-offs, his nifty entrance into the ozone. Oh, absolutely. Like he was Michael McLeod we're talking about now. He was flying all over the ice, and that's the thing that we miss. You saw his puck management. It really was his puck management through the neutral zone and what seemed like easy entries into the offensive zone every time. It's sorely missed. It really is. And, we can't really exemplify. We can't really put into words what different things Michael McLeod did for this team because of the situation that everything went on off the ice with McLeod. It's almost like a no-no to talk about it, but I appreciate you guys bringing up Michael McLeod because it's a big part. It's a big part of what the Devils are missing. And I really do. I see some of the comments here. I want to separate the Team Canada issues with Michael McLeod on the ice. I think it's 2 separate issues. I don't really want to dive into the off ice situation with McLeod. Just on the ice, he was a phenomenal player, and we got to replace him. Yeah, Brian, 100%. They need to be physical. It's what it comes down to. And that's what we're going to really focus on in the offseason. We have to focus on in the offseason. I've spoke to, Mr. White, Jack of Heart there a bunch on Twitter too. We were talking about Dylan. Dylan is a guy that I'd be looking at. There's a lot of free agents coming up here too. Do you want a Brady Shea? Brady Shea is going to be a free agent. Muzzin's going to be a free agent, talking about left defenders here. There's a lot of guys. Hanifin's going to get extended in Vegas. So there's a lot of guys that we really need to look at, but it's not just the goaltending, and the goaltending is obviously the big, big, big need for the Devils. And Kahkonen, it's worth taking a risk on this kid. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. It's worth taking a risk on him, seeing what he can do in the last 20 games of the season. And then Allen, the only thing that I liked about that trade, going back to Jack of Heart here, the only thing I liked about that trade was the retention. The fact he's only going to cost us $1.9 million next year. So I'm still so confused about that trade. It's such a weird trade to me, especially for what we gave up. So, all right, Dennis, what do you got here? Assuming Daw starts tomorrow, who is the backup if Akira is in Utica? Paperwork pending. I would assume it's Kahkonen. I'm not 100% sure on that. I know that Allen has not cleared. He's not going to be here yet. So I'm assuming it's Kahkonen, depending on what's going to be going on with all the paperwork and getting everything sorted out. But, you assume Dawes is going to be the starter tomorrow. Yes. Michael, what do you got here? 5 guys in front of our goalie. That puck has to get through. Need a Sasquatch, big body, physical, stay-at-home D-man. You're absolutely right. And going back to what Jack Hart was saying, Zadorov was one of those types of guys. Listen, there's a lot of free agents here coming up. And I don't think we need another Luke Hughes out there, right? We have Luke Hughes, who's going to be dancing on the blue line. Who's going to show that offensive prowess, who's played phenomenally well when it comes to offensive side of the puck. Lately, the last month, I think we can all agree, when Green sat down Nemitz, I was fine with that under one condition. And I said this to Adam. I want to see Luke Hughes sit a game. And I think attached with the Hughes name, it might be a little tough to actually sit him down. But I want to see a coach with some gumption to be able to sit Luke Hughes down for a game, because I think it goes back to exactly what he said about Nemitz. The fact that Nemitz sat out a game because he looked a little slower on his feet, Green said. I agree. He looked a little slower on his feet. Again, it comes down to the mental fatigue and the physical fatigue of such a long season. but Luke has to sit. If you're going to sit Nemitz, I want to see Luke sit for a game. I think it's a learning process. I think it's going to ground him a little bit. I think he's going to realize that he's not untouchable to be a healthy scratch. And I think it's important for his career too. Oh, this is the guy right here. Ted. I really do like Hataka. Hataka, it doesn't have a place right now with Nemitz and with Luke Hughes, obviously in the top 6 pairings. However, he's probably going to come up now that Miller's gone. I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back up into the National and to get some looks in the last 20 games of the year. Also depends on what's going to happen within the next 5 to 10 games. We got a grueling schedule, guys. We got a grueling schedule. We're going to play the Canes. We're going to play the Rangers. You know what I mean? This is not easy by any means. It's going to be pretty tough to beat both those teams. If they listen, crazier things have happened in the NHL. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. We got to score first, though. I mean, you saw against the Blues. You score first, it changes the complete momentum, tempo of the game. I think a lot of this season has been a mental factor for the Devils. I really think that they just feel down. When you have bad goaltending, you're giving up the first goal. You're chasing the game. When you're chasing the game, listen, I played hockey for a lot of my life. No matter what level you're at, if you're chasing the game and you're playing from behind, it is a completely different mentality for young kids. And that's another learning curve, and that's where veteran leadership is going to come into play. And you hope that's going to be for Allen, for, Kahkonen, and for Schmidt, and for Dawes. So, that's where it comes into play. Who is on your wish list for coach? Dennis, thanks for the question. Excuse me one second. That is, I got a short list. I got a really short list for this one, actually. I am a Sullivan guy. So if Pittsburgh lets go of Sullivan, I want him the coach of the New Jersey Devils. Dineen is another guy I'd like to see take a look here. Berube, obviously, he's been the talk, but I'm a Sullivan guy. I think he's a champion. I think he's a winner. I think what he did with that team is incredible. I think he'd be a good voice for this room, for this locker room. I think he's the guy that I'm going to really focus on if he's let go by the Penguins, which I think it's time for them to move on as well. I think because of his history with the team, I don't think it's going to be in season. We'll find out, though, especially after that brutal loss they just had to the Caps. Michael, that Palat, Nico, and Timo line also operated like they have been together all year. Would love for them to stay together. Listen, we have talked about the rough situation with juggling lines, changing lines, not playing in the correct positions. I am huge on this. Chemistry between line mates. I agree with you 100%. I think this line needs to stay together. Mostly because of Timo, right? It's mostly because of Timo. And the fact that Timo is hot right now, I think you keep him where he is because he's going to be your guy that's going to really score goals if it's not Jack, if it's not Bratt. I'll be honest with you, the last few games, I wanted to see a little bit more out of Bratt. I've talked to a bunch of you guys on Twitter, on Instagram. Jesper Bratt sometimes reminds me of a one-trick pony, which makes me a little bit nervous that he always is flying down the wing and he's not getting to the center of the ice. It's a big concern for me. I love Jesper Bratt. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I think this kid is going to grow. I think he's going to be a great player. I think he is a great player. I love his extension with the Devils. But there's a lot of different things, within his game that I want to see a little bit more of. But no, I agree with you 100%. I want that line to stay together as well. Going back to some of the moves of the trade deadline, I want to hear you guys sound off, on grades. I appreciate Jack of Heart jumping in, giving Fitz a grade there. I'm going to give him the same thing with the B-, the C+. I'm right with you. I think he saved face a little bit with that last trade with Vitek. Who do you guys want for goalie? That's the big question, right? I want Ullmark. I know a lot of people are still on the Markstrom train because he's a little less money than probably Ullmark or Saros will obviously be if they were going to be here long term. You got to remember too, Saros is going to be a guy that's going to be around $10 million a year. He's unbelievable, and you see what's going on right now in Nashville, and that's the Bruno effect, right? We let go of Bruno for Ruff to extend Ruff here too. Does it have a lot to do with the coach as well? Is he doing really well over there? I think he is. I think he's doing a great job. I think this Predators team, they're playing similarly to how the Devils played with a less roster than last year, right? I think that they're overachieving. A lot of people thought they were going to miss the playoffs and miss the playoffs by a decent amount this year, but they're fighting, man. Yeah, Askarov with Allen as a backup. Listen, Mr. White, I'm all about that. If they can make that happen too, what do you think that contract is going to look like? That's the question. What do you think his asking price is going to be? It's obviously going to be a long-term deal. Yeah, Hellebuck, right? Before that extension, I think we all wish that we got that. That was kind of like a flash in the pan where I feel like we were all talking about in the offseason for maybe like a good 3-4 weeks. It was like a heavy conversation with Devils fans in the offseason, and then it fizzled out, and then obviously the extension with the Jets. So yeah, Hellebuck was a guy that I really liked too. It's hindsight's 2020, right? We took a gamble, and this year is a massive 360, right? It's from breaking records last year with most points, most wins, Jack with the point total. It's a massive 360. And this is, I try to put it in perspective, and I know it's difficult, and we're all reactionary as fans. And, Adam he jokes with me all the time because Adam's the guy. Listen, Adam has different, obviously, he hosts different sports podcasts too. He's Nets, Red Bulls, Giants. So he's very tuned into the matter of fact, right? And he's going to be able to break it down with more of an objective opinion rather than the fandom. I'm going to bring that fandom, I'm going to bring it in right away, that fan reaction, because I know a lot of people are feeling very similar to me when it came to this trade deadline, and you saw the Toffoli deal happen in real time. You were like, what the absolute hell is going on right now? So, it's we're going to be like that. We're always going to have that emotional reaction, and it's what makes us fans. It makes us love the sport of hockey, and that's what makes it great to be able to communicate, with all you guys, with all you fans out there, and just hearing different opinions. And it's awesome. It's awesome. Michael, what do you got here? Browder can get on a heater in a string of games. Other times he just doesn't finish. His opportunity is not to say he's going to come in fast and score all the time, but would like to see him. Yeah, listen. Excuse me. You saw it in the playoffs, right? You saw what happened in the playoffs. He kind of disappeared for a little bit. He's the type of guy that can be a little streaky, so I worry about. Mercer's the same way. You saw it last year with Mercer. He's another guy we got to talk about, right? Mercer, what's his contract going to look like? He's at an off year. It's kind of a good thing in a way for the Devils organization. He had an off year because he's going to cost a lot less. Yeah, I like Mercer. I'm one that likes Mercer. I piss a lot of fans off because I think that Holtz should be on the fourth line. I'd love to see him get an opportunity, that is, on top lines. I agree with everything that Fitz said in that press conference about Holtz, about his two-way game, that he hasn't had a good year. Holtz has scored. He has assists. He's a point getter, but his two-way game's bad. And you saw some flashes where he was back-checking really well, forechecking really well. His puck management is pretty bad. And I think that is my big issue with him, and I really want to see him develop and grow. And I also think it was a product of Lindy Ruff's system as well. I don't think that he had the opportunity to get the ice time and to learn on the fly like a lot of other players did. And again, you talk about player management, you talk about how they're handled, you talk about the emotional factor. I'm with Fitz, I'm with Ruff, how Holtz played. Novo asked the tough questions. Novo asked the tough questions and asked about Holtz. Ruff told Novo he better watch the game a little better. And, here we are. Fitz kind of said that too. I wonder too if honestly Novo, because he asked that question, and I have a lot of respect for Ryan. He's great. He asks tough questions. He's aggressive. He follows things up. I wonder if Fitz kind of worded it the way he did because Novo asked the question. Mr. Hart, Jack of Heart. I know Brad is not your cup of tea. I see your posts. I know that you would trade him in a second. If it meant solidifying Allmark in here, you would trade Brad in a second. I already know that. Yeah, Mercer is an Iron Man. Listen, he has a lot of parts of his game that I really like. At the defensive side of the puck, I think he's played extremely well. Penalty killing, really well. My big issue is he's fumbling a lot on puck management through the neutral zone lately and really holding his stick way too tight when he had opportunities to shoot the damn puck. He's got a shot. He should shoot the puck. He's so worried about getting the puck to star players. Now that he's on the third line, he's not going to get the opportunities like he did when he's with the top two lines, but he has to learn how to refine his game the correct way and to really adjust. And I think he will learn. I think he's just having a down year. But I like Mercer. I think it's worth signing Mercer, to a 4-year deal. I'd like to see him get a 4-year deal. And I think it's really worth it. Ted, what's up, man? How do we fix the power play? One word here. Dougie. Where's Dougie? You got a 20-year-old quarterbacking your power play one. You know what I mean? You got Luke Hughes who's learning on the fly to quarterback it. Timo in front of the net. You saw what went on with that. Put Timo in front of the net. Put a big body in front of the net. Bastian was not the answer on the power play, and you saw that a lot. It's about getting different people on the wing. To me, it's about getting Luke Hughes and Jack Hughes off the same power play unit. Straight up. Get them off the same power play unit. For whatever reason, Luke Hughes tries to get Jack the puck, and it's very frustrating, especially to watch live. I was at the game last night against the Blues, and watching that live, you could see it. You could see that he is really trying to get him the puck. What do you think they give Mercer, given his dip in production? Dennis, it's a good question. Assuming 4 years, right? Term line 4 years, I think his camp's gonna want more than that. But assuming it's 4 or 5 year deal, I think you're in the $3.5 million, $3 million to $3.5 million type of contract. Love to hear your opinion on that. We do miss that clutch, accurate slapper, and a lot of times gave us that goal we needed game 3. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That overtime winner at the Garden. That was impeccable, right? Didn't you feel the momentum turn there, too? It's not just that, though, Michael. There's a thing here, too. It's where you got to look at it a little deeper as a quarterback of the power play. I was a center when I played, and I played a little bit of wing. When you have a quarterback on the power play who has vision the way Dougie has vision, it becomes so easy for the rest of the guys on that unit. Here's why. I don't know if you guys saw, if you guys did watch that game last night. Luke Hughes shot the puck into defenders 3 times on the power play, one leading to a 2-on-1 odd man rush, which Luke did have a good play to break up that 2-on-1. It's vision and IQ on the power play. And this is what comes back to learning on the fly in these young 20-year-old rookies learning. And he's going to learn. Dougie found the lanes. Dougie's a big body with a long reach. He found the lanes. He has a wicked wrist shot. He has a wicked slap shot. And he can find those lanes easily. And that's what we're missing. He's a phenomenal player. Again, he struggled defensively, obviously, early in the year. But you're missing it so much on PP1. And Luke Hughes is thrown into the fire. I can't blame the kid for his struggles because he was thrown into the fire. And you saw Colin Miller on the second unit too. You saw Nemitz on the second unit as well. I want to see some different things from Green here and the coaching staff on that second power play unit. And the first one, to be honest, you got to switch things up and you got to find what works really well. So really to sum up, I don't want to keep you guys here too long. It's been great talking to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. Adam and I are going to jump back in. If not tomorrow, we're going to go to the game tomorrow. We're going to check out the Devils playing the Canes. We're going to touch base over the weekend, really kind of breaking down where the Devils are going to be able to go, some targets in the offseason. But for now, it's like I said, I give Fitz a C+, B- kind of grade here. Again, I thought early the Toffoli deal, the Allen deal, I was shaking my head like, what the hell is actually happening right now? I think he made up for it big time with the Vanecek deal. Bringing Kahkonen back over here. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful to see some better goaltending. I'm hopeful it gives the guys in the locker room, an uplifting feeling that we're going to get some better goaltending in here. So that's all we can do, right? We stay positive as fans. C+ grade, I think, is fair for Fitz. I think now it's going to come down to the hot seat went from rough to Fitz. If he fumbles this offseason, his leash is going to be very short with this ownership group. You cannot fumble this. And Adam and I are going to talk more about the analytics and the analytic teams that we hear about, in the Devils organization and what that means to why they didn't maybe go get a goaltender earlier, which I don't agree with. But really now it's Fitz on the hot seat. Fitz is going to have an opportunity here to really turn the page and to really solidify the Devils as that cup contender, not just next year, but in years to come. And we talked about that at the end of last year, that even though we lost to the Canes in the second round, there was a lot of promise for this team, and we want to get that feeling back quickly, and I think we can with getting that number 1 goalie in here. That is a game changer. I don't prefer Markstrom. Would I be mad if Markstrom came in here? No, depending on the return. You can't get fleeced by Conroy. I don't think you're going to get fleeced by Conroy. He's been fumbling a little bit too for the Flames. It's a matter of really getting that number 1 goaltender in here, who I'd like to see Allmark. I'd like to see Saros, obviously. You're going to pay him, and really fine-tuning this group, but you play from your goaltender out, and that's the big things we need to focus on right now. Goaltending, at minimum, 1 defender, and you want to get 2 guys on offense, one being a third-line center. If not Rico, then we got to find someone that's going to really take the place of McLeod, and it's going to be difficult. Maybe it's a couple, different players that we bring in. A couple more questions before I get out of here. Oh, Amanda Stein's shoe. It's nice talking to you on Twitter too. How about Green having to ask for full control of lineup decisions? That's insane. This comes back to the analytics, right? It's all about the analytics and really understanding that there's a lot going on from the top. You got to remember this ownership group too owns a bunch of different teams. And they have a lot of analytical departments on those franchises, with those franchises. Amanda Stein Shu, I don't know your first name, but I'm going to call you Shu. Shu, it's a concern for me. That's a concern. And I think that the coach that you bring in here can't ask for permission to have full control of the lineups. It just cannot happen. And I don't think a guy like Sullivan is going to accept that. I think that we can all agree here. I think that if you know hockey, and you know the Metro Division, you know the Penguins, the coach that Sullivan is, if he doesn't have full control of this lineup night in and night out, he's going to say, all right, go scratch. I don't want to be here, and that's a big concern. And it's a great point, and something Adam and I are really going to dive into as well as the offseason comes to fruition here. Just to jump back on your point, Fitz and analytics, meddling with Lindy, let the coach be the coach. Yeah, absolutely agree. And Fitz he solidified what was going on in the room, what he said about Holtz. And no matter what you think of Ruff, no matter what you think of Holtz, you saw that they were arm in arm, eye to eye when it came to Holtz. Listen, I wanted Fitz to approach that differently. It's Novo asking it, I think, did kind of dictate Fitz's response because I think he sees what's going on. I agree with everything Fitz said, but I do not think it was the place to say it the way he did, and that's something, Adam and I don't know if Adam and I agree on that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Ted, Jack Hughes needs to practice a lot more. I'm not worried about this too much, Ted. I'm really not worried about this too much. Reason why I'm not worried about this too much is because Jack does a lot of things really well, and I think he was flying all over that game against the Ducks. I think that it was kind of the Jack show because he was absolutely incredible, and I think the Devils were just dominated in a lot of parts of that game where they never should have been dominated by a bad Ducks team. Yeah, I mean, listen, I hate the shootout. I've been vocal about hating the shootout. I'm not too concerned about Jack with penalty shots, but yeah, of course. I mean, it sucked, right? It sucked seeing that at the end of the game. There's 2.1 seconds left, 4-3, and Jack can score to go into overtime. And maybe that changes the trajectory of where the Devils are going to be. Maybe they go in and they win that Kings game because they have more confidence. We don't know. Couple more here. Omar and Saros, either one of those after not snatching up Hellebuck. Yeah, listen, I'm an Omar guy. I think Saros is going to be too pricey. I think he's going to want $10.5 million a year. I don't think Omar will want that. I think it's going to be a lot easier for the Devils to be able to work some money around. I think Saros is going to be absolutely expensive. Listen, if he was here and Fitz could work it out, I'm all about it. You know what I mean? Mr. White, Florida went all out with analytics, and it went south in a hurry. Yeah. Oh, wow. Good. Look at you dropping these things, man. You just... We got to talk more on Twitter, man, because I feel like I don't know how old you are, but I'm 38 years old, and I feel like there's a lot of things in the past that we can bring up. I was talking to Adam about the 08 Penguins, too. It's, that when they missed the playoffs and then they won the Stanley Cup the following year. So, there's a lot of things that, you look at from past teams' success. There's a lot of puck luck that comes involved, obviously, with winning the Stanley Cup. You have to be lucky at times, too. But again, it starts with your goaltending. That's what it's about. You start with your goaltending and you work your way on out. And Ratko Gudas. We haven't talked about Ratko Gudas. Jack of Heart, you're 44. You're a young man, Mr. White. But, Ratko Gudas, we've talked about a bunch. He's a guy, he's plus, I think, 13 or 12, whatever it is, on a bad Ducks team. And plus minus is tough, right? We look at those stats. Sometimes it's extremely misleading. Other times it's not. On a bad Anaheim team, for Ratko Gudas, who's a physical dude, who's going to hit you, who's going to play extremely well behind his goal, that's incredible. That's the type of dude, that's the type of defenseman we need to have in here. Markstrom turns 35 in January. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm not really aiming at him. And Adam and I have talked about this. We felt like the price was way too steep for Markstrom at the deadline. I think that Conroy knew that what he's done for the Flames, he could not get away with getting fleeced by the Devils. And he was going to do everything that he could to make sure he won that trade. And that's why Fitz did not make that move in season. And I think we all knew that. I think it was going to cost something extremely hefty, like Holtz, a couple first rounders, and a prospect. He was probably asking for something crazy. And it's not the move with an aging goaltender that's 35 years old. He's a young man. I'm 38. Jack of Hearts, listen, he's 44. So 35, it's a young man's game. You know what I mean? Yeah, Gudas should have been a Devil. I wanted Gudas too. I was really vocal about that too in the offseason. He's a guy you want, you know. I don't know if you guys remember in the playoffs, you know, when he was literally screaming in the goaltender's face after that overtime winner. You know, that's that energy I want. That's that tough, gritty guy. You know, I don't want pond hockey players anymore. I want to bring that energy, that toughness, that physicality on the boards, that puck management. We need guys like that to complement our guys that have the speed, the Jack Hughes, the Jesper Bratz. You know, we need to be able to complement those guys with tough physical guys that are going to clear up pucks and clear up space. Jack's going to get into open space. Jesper's going to fly down the wing. He's going to get into open space. We need those guys to be able to really knock the teeth out of our opposition. You know, and a lot of people rip on Palat. I want to talk about Palat for a second. I understand that contract is not favorable from a team perspective, and $6 million a year is not what we want to pay Palat. Palat is one of the only guys that's really physical. He throws hits. And I can name about 5 to 10 times where I've seen him this year throw a massive hit, a turnover from the opposition, clears up some space, and Nico Hischier will score a goal. You know, so Palat has done a lot for this team on a physical level that not a lot of players for the Devils have done. And to be honest with you, that speaks a lot about what we need, right? That speaks a lot about what we're really missing this year. And going into the offseason, that has to be a focus for Fitz. Obviously, goaltending number one, big left defenseman number two. And I think even when you're talking about forwards, you need those guys. You need guys that are younger than Palat, obviously, but who are going to carry their weight. Michael, 34 years here. Have some history. Watched us as well. 2002, making it to face the Canes. I remember that. Then went to the Cup the next season. This is just a bump in the road. We would get there. Yes, I know you want Arbor. Okay. I know you want Arbor. I do too. That dude, his value has gone up too, Mr. White. His value has gone up a lot. And I think that you see it too. There is a lot of untapped intangibles too. I think he's going to be, wherever he's going to be playing in the future, he's going to change the dynamic of a locker room, just like Radko Gudas will, you know, more on a veteran level. Yes, I agree with you. Absolutely. He's a guy that you really need to be targeting. Sorry, it's going back to you, Michael. I just wanted to jump in there because I know I saw Mr. White mention him a few times. Yeah, listen, I saw the Devils win the Cup in 2003. It was one of the best things that I've ever experienced, you know, as a sports fan. You know, being there, watching the Devils hoist that cup was unbelievable. And I'm 17 years old then, you know, and I've been a season ticket holder from the year before that, 2002. This is my 22nd year. We love hockey, right? We're fans. You know, we're fans number one, and it's awesome to be able to be on this platform with you guys and be able to talk hockey. You know, it's what we love. It's what makes being a fan so incredible and so much fun. And it sucks to lose, man. It sucks to lose, especially when they had the year that we had last year. You go into this year like, the hell is going on? You know, how are we becoming like pseudo sellers, you know, at the trade deadline? You know, we did make some moves that I feel like were lateral, obviously, dumping some salary as well. So, you know, it's brutal, man, to go from a year like that to a year like this. But you move on, and now again, Fitz is on the hot seat. You know, Fitz is on the hot seat this offseason. He cannot fumble this offseason. He cannot. If we go in to next year, I'm going to say this right now. If we go into next year with Kahkonen and we say we sign him to like a 2-year deal, whatever it might be, 3-year deal, and Allen as our goalie tandem, we got problems. We got problems. Even if you solidify your defense, we're going to be a better team, right? We'll be a better team if we solidify our defense, and that's our goalie tandem. I think we'll make the playoffs. That's not long-term success to me, unless Kahkonen turns out to be a phenomenal player. I know people have been calling for the goalie coach to get out of here and get fired, so we'll see what happens with that as well. Dennis, why does the fan base put a higher value on Holtz than the coaches? Reactionary, Dennis. Every time people see the highlight reel goal or they see a player flying with offensive ability and great offensive IQ, it is hard to see the full scope of what the coaches see, meaning defensive game. I was very, very critical of Holtz for a long time. I'm still critical of Holtz because I do not think he is the player that every fan makes him out to. I shouldn't say every fan, excuse me. Most fans make him out to be. I think that he is a very good player that can develop, and he's developing a little slower than some players do. Alexander Holtz can thrive with the right coach. I think Holtz would thrive with Torts, with Laviolette. Very different types of coaches that I think would utilize them the correct way, would teach them differently. I think Holtz is a product of the system that Ruff had. We'll see what Green can do, over the next 20 games with Holtz and see where Holtz is. It's everybody's reactionary. Fans want to see certain things when they see failures on other lines, right? Fans want to see him and Mercer switched, because of what's going on with Mercer and his struggles. So I understand, I understand it. I don't agree with it because I'm very focused. I was a center, so I'm very focused on the defensive part of the game. That's why I love Nico Hischier. I've been very vocal that he's my favorite player. I know certain people don't think that he should be the captain of this team. I think that he is a very good leader. I don't know what goes on in that locker room. I'd be very curious to see what went on in that locker room, but the defensive part of the game is a massive part of this game, and you don't see many Cup champions just with offense. We're not going to outscore everybody every night. You can't structure a team like that. And again, this falls onto Fitz and why we're doing what we're doing at the deadline, why we rushed, why I think that we didn't get what we could have gotten for Toffoli. Why I think that we got Allen. It's kind of a scared move in a way. I felt like it was. But luckily, I think Fitz saved face, and I think that getting Kahkonen for Vitek was a great move. I think that was an A trade. And it kind of saved face today. And Miller getting the mid-round pick, it's good. Good luck to Miller too. I thought that for his short term here with the Devils, I thought he handled it like a pro. This is a big thing here. All right, so everybody's on the Graves and Severson train, missing them. Severson I miss on the power play because, again, you go back to what Dougie did. Dougie found the lanes. He finds the lanes. Severson found the lanes on the power play. Severson on the blue line would find those lanes. Very good at that. He turned the puck over a lot. You know what I mean? He turned the puck over a lot. Fans were very tough on him. I thought Severson was a good player. Graves is having a tough year in Pittsburgh, man. He's struggling out there, but he was a shot blocking machine. We thought that Ball would become that shot blocking machine. I think that Ball does lead and block shots for defensemen. He's young. Remember, he's young. I think I'm going to go to what my biggest losses on this team were. It's going to surprise some of you. I think it's Tomas Tatar is one of the biggest losses on this team. I think that he was a workhorse. I think that he scored goals. He created situations, created opportunities for his line mates. I think having a gritty guy like that is what's really needed, for this team. Now more physicality. I want a guy who's even more physical than Tuna. Tuna was physical, and he's, he's my height. I think he's 5'11". I don't think he's that tall, but he brought an element to this team that was really, really, it wasn't appreciated, I feel like, as much as it should have been. I feel like it was a very underrated part of his game that he brought. Yeah, Sharon Govitz. Yeah, it's Shu, you go back to these, right? It's my big thing here now is I look back at the trade for Toffoli and Sharon Govitz here, and that's why I was so angry and pissed off when that happened, because I felt like it was a waste. Sharon Govitz is thriving, and he's thriving on the third line out there for a lot of the season for the Flames. Yeah, Blake Coleman is another guy that we talk about too on the Flames, who really stepped it up for them too, and he's a workhorse. It's another workhorse, but and you love what Zet's doing up in San Jose there too. He was another great player. Going back to the analytical department here, I fear the analytical department thinks goaltending shouldn't eat a big portion of our cap percentage. Yeah, this is my big thing too, right? If you do not go out and get a goalie, a number one goalie, you got a problem. Look at what Vegas did last year with Hill. You know what I mean? Like you will win a cup with incredible goaltending. You will win a playoff series with incredible goaltending. Look at Akira Schmid. No one thought he could come in and do that. You saw Vitek slide in the playoffs against the Rangers. He had a couple really bad games. Akira came in, calm, cool, collected, and he took that series. Granted, Devils did a lot of great things, on the ice, not just goaltending, that won that series. Center position, we dominated. Nico dominated Mika Zibanejad, Mika Zibanejad's really had a slump year too. It's why the Rangers were trying to make a lot of moves too in during the deadline. They kind of fumbled that because they went Gensel pretty bad too. Yeah, Brian. It's listen. You need defense. It's not just defensive players. It's defense on the offensive side of the puck. And that's the problem, and that's what people and fans think of, right? When you think of defense, it's just the casual fan is thinking, oh, your defenders. Yeah, your defenders are going to make those defensive plays. No, it's you've seen flashes of Jack Hughes making phenomenal back checking plays where he's lifting a stick coming back, at center ice, and he's taking the puck away. Those are the plays that you need. Mr. White and I have talked to, that's Jack of Heart. Mr. White and I have talked about this at length. Physicality is so important. It is so important, and that's what makes your team tough. Making teams afraid. If you hit my guy, if you hit Jack, if you hit Nico, which I'm tired of Nico getting hit. I feel like he's hit constantly. And nothing happens. I want a guy that's going to be able to be on the ice, and you can't hit our guys. That's part of the physicality too. You don't have to go out and fight everybody. When I say physicality, I think that's a big misconception, is that you're a fighter. You don't have to be a fighter to be physical. You don't. It's just you're tough. You grind out shifts. Yeah, exactly. His board play is phenomenal. Lazar is not as good as Tuna, in my opinion. I think Lazar has had a phenomenal year with the Devils and beat expectations. But Tuna, that's irreplaceable, what he brought, Yeah, no Hamilton meant we were dead. One hell of a frustrating year. Goaltending, shoe. Goaltending. I think that I think we're talking about a lot of different things right now. If we had goaltending, you know what I mean? Like there's been games and stretches of like 4 or 5 games where we had like an 825 save percentage. You're not going to win NHL games like that. I don't care who you play. You're just not going to win games like that. Yeah, McDermott he's a glorified AHL player. Let's call it what it is. He's not an NHL caliber player that's going to play night in and night out. He is a guy that is supposed to unleash some fear in the in the eyes of our opponents, but he's took 2 penalties, hasn't fought anybody yet. Been physical. Listen, I'm happy with his physicality. In the fourth line, I thought it played well the last few games. So, McDermott, I want to see him go out and fight someone. I'm old school. I like to see the fights here and there. I think that it can turn a game. I think it has turned certain games. So, we'll see. I have hope for this offseason will bring a big fish, he said in the press conference. Yeah, he said that he was going to go big game hunting, right? That's what we were talking about at the top of the episode. And we're going to get out of here soon, guys. Again, thank you so much for all the questions. I love to see it. Adam and I are going to get in here this weekend, hopefully a couple episodes. Listen. When he says those comments, when Fitz says those comments, my assumption, that means a goalie, right? That means a goalie. I know people don't agree with this, but again, it comes down to who can they get and what's the price point. You have to give up players to get players, and if it means getting Ullmark in here and it means losing Holtz, a couple first rounders, prospect, it's the price you pay. You know what I mean? It's you got to bite the bullet and you got to do it. And that's what it comes down to. Yeah, we'll see what happens though. PK said it best. If you don't have a good goaltender, you're not going to win games in this league. Yeah, listen, you're absolutely right. It's from the net up, right? You have to build from the goaltender up, and that's how you win Stanley Cups. Stanley Cups were built on goaltending and defense, and obviously, cleaning up plays in front of the opposition's net. That's why Timo Meier can be so vital for this team moving forward. But, we'll see what happens. Shu, a couple last questions. Your team being decimated by injuries did not help our goalies either. Vitek 50, 20, and 7 as a devil. Listen, I know. Injuries were horrific. And you can't fault the goaltending 100% for every single game, every single mistake. There's been some massive lapses in defensive structure, in defensive responsibility. I could have a whole episode, where I'm just talking about why Luke Hughes is going to cover the same side of the ice as John Marino, and leaving the net wide open. But it comes down to your goaltender making a big save. And we have not had that where our goaltenders are making big saves. There's been flashes, but not really. What do you think of Matt Rempe and his antics? It's good for hockey. It's good for hockey. You know what I mean? It's making fighting, bringing it back a touch. I don't want the kid to get hurt. He needs to take it easy. He got it's a big dude, but he's still learning at this level. You know, when he fought Delorier too, I was a little bit worried about him. You know, Reeves too. He's taking big hits, big punches. He needs to pick his fights in the right way. He also needs to learn how to check. He's 6'7". It's kind of the Chara effect, I call it. He needs to learn how to not leave his feet. He needs to learn how to use his body the right way to deliver clean hits. A lot of people were talking about the Bastion hit. There was no intent there. He did contact his head. I like him. I think he's going to be good for the NHL. Vitek having a great record with the ECHL stats is probably the strangest thing. Mr. White, I think we agree on a lot of things. You know what I mean? Some of the things you say are like, they get a little crazy, but I love it. You know what I mean? And I love that the back and forth on Twitter. You guys are all great, man. No, Vitek's numbers are weird, right? It's when you see Vitek's numbers and you see his career, it's strange. Watch Amanda one-on-one with Fitzy. No, I did see that when he was talking to Fitz after the trade deadline. No. Yeah, I saw it. That's what we're talking about. The big game hunting. That's where he's going for the big game hunting. You know, listen, Fitz has said all the right things and what you expect every GM to say. You know what I mean? There's not much he could say after what's gone on this season. He's not going to take, you know, the full brunt of the responsibility of saying that I should have fired Ruff sooner. I should have traded for a goalie sooner. Excuse me. But at the end of the day, now it's moving forward. Offseason that's it. Don't fumble in the offseason. All right, I'm going to get out of here, guys. You've been great tonight. Thank you so much. Adam and I are going to come back on very soon. Excuse me. We're going to talk more. We're going to talk way more detail on the trade deadline. We're going to talk more detail on who we want to target. And the game's coming up. But find us on NJ Devils PL, obviously on Twitter. We're all over social media at Devils Puck Luck. Until next time, you guys have been absolutely amazing. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you soon.